Well, welcome back to the 65 series. Now, the last video we did was on putting the cylinder head on. I put the studs in, the head studs in, I Loctited them in. We've put the cylinder head on, tensioned the cylinder head up. So now we're up to just putting little knickknacks and bits and pieces on. Now, you may remember that the bolts for the cam followers were buggered. Someone put someone at some stage in the tractor's life had tightened the nutset tight after adjusting the rockers or the tappets, that they'd stripped these threads in here. These are hardened bolts, and when you nip them up too much, you actually, the threads break away inside there. So we opted for a full, we have brand new cam followers, so we opted for a full set of screws. So, pardon me, genuine screws, genuine Perkins screws. They were $148 for 8 screws and 8 lock nuts. But look, we're not doing any shortcuts. That's just how we got to have it. It's got to be a good thing. Now, I've put I had to put a stud back in the thermostat housing, and I've put the studs back in the cylinder head to take the rocker gear here. The studs must have a slight little whoop in them because I've got to sort of bump the rocker gear down. But there's just nothing. Now, one thing to remember with putting the rocker gear down, you have a little oil pipe that comes down over the back. It's got a tiny little rubber olive. Now, I've just used a little bit of hose, a little bit of vacuum hose. The gasket kits, I've got a Bearco one here and a Sparex one, and none of them seem to have just this little rubber in them. Not that I could see anyway, so I've just got a little piece of hose there. So that'll go down into the cylinder head, into the thread there, and that gives us oil supply for our rockers. To put the studs in, I used my trusty stud installing tool. Now, mine's playing up a little bit, but oh boy, I've used it a lot. I'll put a link to this, or a set of these, in the description through the Amazon affiliate program. I'll just show you where they are. Like the 10mm one does the 3/8 bolts nicely. I think the 12mm one did all the 7/16 head studs. So I will put a link to that in the description. And I'm chucking shit on the floor. Hey, still got gravity. Bundy Bear shed has gravity. So another couple of things I'd like to cover, and I should start a what pisses me off segment. The reason I should do that is the head studs, or the manifold studs on the old head were worn, and at some stage the manifold had been loose, and it must have been loose for a long time because it started wearing quite a few millimetres into the exhaust stud. So I rang Judy up and I said, oh, when you're coming home this afternoon, can you bring me home some 3/8 UNF exhaust manifold studs? So she came home with some Bearco B426s, I think it was, and the studs fitted all right. But what pisses me off is the nuts are not 9/16 spanner size like they're supposed to be. They're 13mm. And if you're tractor bloke, anyone that works on anything, you know that you get the AF spanners out to work on a Fergie, then there's some bloody metric bolts. So, over the shoulder with them. We did have some, I think they were Quality Tractor Parts one that we had in stock. So I got some proper bolts, and the manifold here, we're putting a new manifold on. The old one was all welded up around the flange here, was all welded, and you couldn't even get the flange off it. So the manifold we're putting on, even though it's sponsored by Sparex, I didn't ask them for one of these because I had one. I had one from another job years ago in stock, so I thought, well, I'll just use that. Then I'll have to grab that phone by the look of that. Okay, phone always rings. Okay, on our manifold here, and it's one I had left over from a job from years ago, so I tidied it up, and You can see where I've sanded it to get any dags off the casting. But the other thing that pisses me off, bloody bear coat, is inside here, where the casting, like this would have been cast in 2 pieces, where the bolts go on here is not flat. So you can see where the joint is, and say to pick this one here, where the nut should sit nice and flat, it's higher this side than that side by about 1 millimetre, and it's got a hump in the middle there. So what I'll have to do is put this part in the vise over there, and I'm going to have to file that nice and flat, because if we go with it how it is, the nut won't have a big surface area and it'll be loose in no time. So, but yeah, bloody bear coat. Yeah, so I've got to file all that down yet and get that ready. I just thought, it's a Thursday and I'm home today. They're putting the new solar panels on the roof of the shed. So before the phone call I just had is that the fellas are on their way. So I'm trying to rattle a little bit out for the day. So another thing that you may find controversial is this. Now, it had the old style thermostat in it, and I suppose it worked okay, I don't know. But I've cut the guts out of it, and instead of a thermostat, I'm going to fit this restriction. Now, there's a couple of theories behind that, and I suppose we should have a cover them a little bit. I'll just slide the gasket down there. I've cleaned up all the housing. I've sandblasted that. I've put it in. See a vapor rust. I put it in a vapor rust, and oh, bloody worked like a beauty. And then I sandblasted it. So back to cutting the guts out of the thermostat. Now, if you're in a country where it's cold, England, Ireland, Denmark, North America, don't do that. The thermostat, it holds coolant in the engine, so the engine gets up to operating temperature quicker. And overseas, I can imagine if you're snow ploughing or something like that, look, it's not something we do here, but I can imagine that the fan drawing the cold air through the radiator would be that cold to chill the water down that much that the water coming back in the bottom, coming out of your bottom of your radiator, would be bloody freezing. And so the thermostat over the job, from when you start it to when you stop it, in the cold climates it's probably open a bit and close a bit, and just feather the water through or the coolant through. And you can see that on the temperature gauge. You'll see a temperature gauge comes up, then in cold conditions you can see it drop back a bit, and you can see it up and down, and just things that will affect it are in Bundaberg here, heading into the wind and having your back to the wind, you can notice a couple of degrees difference. But because we're tropical here, I've chosen to go that way, and the reason is that hole in the centre of the thermostat there, Perkins have indicated that when that thermostat's wide open, that restriction slows the coolant down enough to go through the radiator, so it's going through at a slow enough rate that the heat's taken out by the air going past. So if you had no restriction there at all, look, it may not matter. People pull the thermostat out and throw it away, but I like to leave the restriction. So in Australia, in Bundaberg anyway, up where we are, it's probably different down south. You can test a thermostat and you can test your temperature, and you start the tractor within 3 or 4 minutes, the thermostat's open, it stays open all day. It doesn't cycle. So look, I've just chosen to do it that way on mine. I could have put a thermostat in, as you know, I own a tractor part shop, but I just chose to do that. I just thought, well, it's trouble free, and I know for sure that it just stays open around here. So you may disagree. That's something open for discussion, and yeah, that's fine. We're all allowed to have an opinion, but mine's right. Yeah. Anyway, we won't go there. So all we have to do here is, I'm just trying to line that little pipe up. I've got all the rocker adjusting screws in. I may have to take them down a little bit further yet, but I'll just try and get this started and underway. So what happens is, because you have an alloy tower for your rocker gear, I can probably take that over so you can see that a bit better. The towers for the rocker gear, they would mark up quickly. So each one of them has a hardened steel washer that goes down over the top. Down we go there. And they had a nylon lock nut on them. And the lock nut's to ensure it doesn't come undone. I haven't got new lock nuts. I'm just going to Loctite mine on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to drop it down to about 30 foot-pounds. I have my trusty tension wrench here. I'll set that to 30 foot-pounds, and with a drop of Loctite on each of these, I'll pull them all down nice and even if I can. It looks like some of these adjusting screws are going to have to go down a bit. So I'll probably take a minute and put them down and tension all this down, and we might come back when it's time to do the tappets. So next time you see it, this will be bolted down. This will be all bolted down snugly and tensioned down. The oil pipe here will be done up, and it'll be time to start adjusting the tappets. So I just thought I'd cover a few of those things. What pisses me off with the wrong size nuts, the casting being shit quality, it's a Bearco one, and letting you know why I've chosen to go that way with the thermostat. The thermostat might be a contentious issue, and I'm happy with that. Just put a remark in if you say, oh, you bloody dickhead. Put a remark in, I don't mind. And what I'll also do, by the time you see it next time probably, is fit the inlet manifold. I've bead blasted all that. I've got the sandblaster going like a cracker now, so every little thing within Cooey gets a sandblast, whether it needs one or not. So that's all tidied up, so I'll pop that back on, and yeah, next time you see us, we'll be ready to do some tappets. So I'll probably just put a little bit of ancillary stuff on. I won't put the exhaust manifold on because we haven't got the injectors on, and the injector pipes come in behind the exhaust manifold. So I'll get this organised and we'll be back in a little while. Well, it's a new day and I'm back again. We had some fellas up on the roof fitting new solar panels, and the noise, holy. So I got a few bits and pieces done to our engine here, and like I got the thermostat housing bolted on, the rocker cover I had all sandblasted, and I glued the gasket in. Now, what I like to do with the rocker cover gaskets is I get a bit of contact cement. I use a CRC thing, but contact cement, and I spray the top of the gasket and I spray the rocker cover, and that way the gasket stays with the rocker cover. So you can set it on, you can take it off, and the gasket's safe. It's not going to go anywhere. When we bolt it down for the last time, the gasket's not going to walk out or slide in under or anything like that. So a bit of contact adhesive of some sort and your gasket will stay there. So I sandblasted the whole thing, and that's just a bit of grey something or other I found to put on it. So I'll pop that down here out of the way. Now, while I was putting the rocker gear and that on, the fellas were on the roof, and look, all I did was, I spoke about that earlier in the video, is pull it down, 30 foot-pounds on the nuts here. They're nylon lock nuts, but I didn't have new ones. I've used the old ones and Loctited them into place. And I've had to wind the backing screws, or the adjusting screws on the cam followers. I've had to wind them down just so I can bolt the rocker gear down, and you can see that I have nothing riding there. So they're all nice and loose. So another part of what pisses me off is I have genuine Perkins screws for the cam followers, and they're 9/16. The Sparex cam followers, I think they should be 1/2 inch, but they're about 13 millimeters. A 1/2 inch spanner just does not quite fit on there. I don't know why they do that stuff. I've got a worn out 1/2 inch spanner here, and it almost makes it the whole way onto it. So I don't know. You'd think if they're going to grind a couple of flats, and they are ground flats by the look of it, and you'd think if they're going to do that, they'd do it properly. But anyway, that's just what we have to work with. I've taped up the top and bottom here, just any holes that are there I've just taped up, but I had a whoopsie. And on the other side of the engine here, in the series about taking the head off, there's a little U-section pipe just here, and what happens with these engines is the oil from the oil pump comes in here, goes up there to that'll be oil in the idlers, and then it comes across into the centre of the camshaft to lubricate the camshaft, and then there's a little U-shaped pipe that comes up into the cylinder head. And I mentioned that pipe when I was pulling the cylinder head off, to not forget it, because you wouldn't be the only one to ever put one on. So, or to try and lift the head off and forget the pipe and stretch it and make it all shit. So anyway, the other day, while the fellas were here, and I couldn't film because of the noise, I thought, right, I'll just put a couple of those pipes on and work with that. Well, in the new Sparex cylinder head, I started screwing up the banjo bolt, and it hadn't quite, that's your banjo bolt, and it hadn't quite come down to tensioning right up, and becoming tight on the copper washers, and I thought, oh, that feels bloody tight. It just went tight. And for the last few turns, and I thought, oh, I might just keep it going to get it, but no, I thought, nah, look, take it back out. So I went to back it back out and broke the bloody thing off in the head. And so, bit of a nice shit moment. That's the broken bolt, and there was about 3 threads left. So I was lucky enough that I had a 3/8 UNF nut. I screwed the 3/8 nut on about the 2 or 3 threads, and I put a real hot weld in there, and that was enough to get it out. I could then put a spanner on and get it out. But the thing is now is that I have to make one. So I won't do that. I'll wait until we run out of parts on a job or something. But the end result was that I got the broken bolt out. I got a 3/8 UNF bottoming tap, and I threaded that right down into the hole, into the oil gallery. And then I thought, oh, here you are. I would have liked to have known it didn't fit before I fitted the cam. And so then I had to work out, and I'm just looking for my little magnet that I had. Here it is. And so I'd put it in a bit, then I'd poke my magnet down the hole, pull any swarth out, and did that 6 times. And when I finished the hole and it went down to the depth that I thought we needed, I made sure there was no swarth. I brake cleaned it, blew it out with air, and put the magnet down. I'm sure I've left nothing in there. Well, if it is, I don't know how to get it out. So, yeah, look, just the thread can't have been deep enough on the Sparex head for that banjo bolt. And as it nipped down, I thought, oh, I'm so close, I might just get it that way. And sometimes you shouldn't do something and you do it anyway. It was one of those cases. Silly bastard, eh?